So he can't keep getting away with it. Tucker Carlson, the mad lad, he keeps releasing a 10-minute video that gets billions and billions of views because he is not lying.
Impressive views.
Yeah,
impressive numbers.
I mean, regardless of what you think of Tucker Carlson's worldview, the thing that's, I say, not lying about Tucker Carlson, especially, is the fact that he's such a sincere, honest guy in his beliefs, and will lay out, look, here's what I believe that happened.
Yeah.
And it's utterly engrossing because his perspective is so underserved by the American mainstream of either propaganda wing.
And I think it is because he's so outspoken and clear about why he believes that he gets these views.
Yeah. But we'll get to some horrors of the things he's talking about in a minute, which we'll start off just by mentioning something on lotus.com that's quite related. Robert Conquest reflections on a ravaged century, because, you know, Nazis and Soviets kind of ruined all of Eastern Europe, frankly. Never going to get over, apparently.
Is Robert Conquest the author who has written books about Stalin, Lenin, and Trotsky? I think so.
Probably.
Yeah, he's a really good historian.
Highly recommend this one, though. Very good.
Yeah.
So that's the book club if you want to go and listen to it instead of having to read all the pages, which is understandable. But we'll go to Tucker Carlson. So he has released his first episode of his Twitter show. You may remember he had a Fox show. Fox, for some reason, out of the blue, said, you know, you're getting too many views for us. Too much attention on this news channel, buddy. You're gone. You're underperforming by being too popular. It didn't make any sense.
You make us look bad.
Yeah, he was making everyone else look bad, and that was the reason, which, I don't know, I feel like they like money, I presume. Or he was saying opinions that they didn't like, so they decided to get rid of him for bad opinions. But the thing was, none of his opinions were particularly controversial in the American right, but they were controversial for Fox News.
Yeah.
Which was a big, weird moment. So he left, set up his Twitter show, where he said he'd be announcing all of his shows on Twitter. He's uploaded the first episode, as you can see here, and at the time of looking at it, as we're going live, 51 million views there. There should really be, I think, impressions, people seeing it in their feeds. But the video itself, I don't know if you can, because I don't think it's come up there, but if you click on the video, it may play ever so slightly, but we'll try and ignore that. Like, if you make it bigger, I think it does come up with a number.
Happened to the dam.
Nope, can't see it there, but I do on my phone. Maybe that 50 million is just the amount of views he's got now, not even impressions, because it was a ridiculous amount. Point is, when we're arguing about how many tens of millions of views Tucker Carlson got on a 10-minute clip he put on Twitter.com, kind of pointless, really.
Yeah.
The dude has made an unbelievable impact, and deservedly so, as I mentioned, because he manages to bring a perspective, not only in such a professional manner, but one that's completely underserved.
And he has close to 150,000 retweets, 17,000 quotes, more than 500,000 likes.
Yeah, amazing numbers. So I'll just go quickly, because it's 10 minutes, we don't have time to play the full thing, over what he argues in here. So he talks about the dam in Ukraine that's been destroyed, and the effects of the dam being destroyed. He argues strategically far worse for Russia than they are for Ukraine. So he argues, well, why would Russia blow up a dam that would then massively negatively impact them and not their enemy in the war? And he says this is just like Nord Stream, where everyone's trying to be convinced that the Russians blew up their own pipeline. He then goes on to say that Zelensky isn't some kind of Churchill, but another kind of new member of the rich elite. Calls him rat-like at one point, because he doesn't like him.
Especially when he was talking about his discussion with Lindsey Graham.
Yeah. He also goes on to talk about Lindsey Graham and laughing at the fact that loads of people are dying. Disagree with that one, but whatever. He also says that stories that matter, or details that don't fit the simple narratives, are just not allowed in the West. Mentions, for example, this guy from, I think it was the Pentagon, who's left, and just leaked that apparently there are UFOs and dead aliens that we've been studying. Yeah. I don't know how credible that is, obviously, but he comes out and says that was news that broke from someone who seemingly isn't completely insane, and for some reason the Washington Post had the story and decided not to run it. It's like, even if it's completely false, why not run it and then try and find out? You would have thought, but instead it's taboos that make people not look into something, even if there's only a small chance it could be true. So, instead, we don't get anything useful. We get, don't ask about why the rich are getting so much richer, fight about racism instead. That's the modern life of being an American. And then he tells this story of tourists who went to the USSR in the 1970s and found Russians had complete delusions about life in America, that the Americans were all living in poverty, and that they would spend all their time in race wars and were endlessly jealous of the peace in the Soviet Union.
If people have one source of information and there is a sort of ministry of truth, no doubt people are going to believe weird things.
Yeah, it's unsurprising when you're told about the madness people lived in the USSR.
And it's very good if we have social media platforms like Twitter that allow for free speech, because we have a more decentralized means of communication and means of receiving information, instead of having all information emanating from one, let's say, centralized power.
And that was the beauty of the West, at least how it's advertised.
Yeah.
And then in the modern era, well, how come all of these major outlets, we still have the minor ones, thank God, but obviously all the major ones that have unbelievable amounts of money to, burn, all of them seem to agree on whatever the given thing is all the time. And the net effect is that we have the minor outlets, obviously, but then the major ones are essentially like TASS, the old Soviet news conglomerate. It's weird. I mean, he says today Americans are as misled as the Russians in that time. Quick point just about his video in general. Excellent communication skills. Excellent narrative storytelling. And also, as I mentioned, a genuine opinion that is underserved in the American propaganda machines that are the major networks. So, just as a side note, very jealous. Just anyone who makes content, I think, who looks at how Tucker Carlson makes his content, must be incredibly jealous of how talented and, good
It's really
he is at his
straightforward.
job. So, we'll play a short clip of just why Helen thought was one of the best bits, just so you can get a tenure of it. Let's play that.
By this point, it's possible that American citizens are the least informed people in the world. Your average yak herder in Tajikistan knows who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. It's obvious. Does he think some skinny dude in a dress is actually a girl? Come on. That idea would never occur to him. You've got to be lied to at full volume over a period of years in order to reach conclusions like that. And of course, we have been.
I have to say something about this, if I may. That I think that this is an exaggeration, because many people in other areas in the world, they may have good information about what's going outside their countries, but not necessarily within their countries. I'm just saying that. I thought that was
the North Koreans probably do know less about the world, to be fair. I mean, that is true. But I think more the fundamental point of this entire video and the things I laid out is that his point is, as the previous one that he made, is just the American media are terrible, making our country worse, and you can map it in the level of education people have about certain issues and how they act specifically. They will just ignore things, for example, that they've all decided to ignore, and then anyone who says anything about it is considered taboo for saying so.
And frequently phrase things in ways that appeal to emotion, as if things are completely settled. It's like, how do you feel for these attacks on your humanity? As if they are.
We'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah. Just very quickly, I'm going to just show some of the response, which was funny. Elon Musk, obviously congratulating him. Basically, thank you for coming to the platform. If anyone else wants to join, it's open. They're not going to, because they're all cowards. No one can do as well. I'm talking about the left here, who are screaming about, how come he's allowed all these views? Because people like him and he's good at his job. That's why. And you're not, so you don't get those views. If we move forward, we can see Taylor Lorenz, who had the most retarded take, though. She said, it's wild to see what a fish out of water he is on the internet. No jump cuts, no background music, no catchy thumbnail or video title. Not sure you're going to stack up against even the average streamer or YouTuber?
Yeah,
are we looking at the same numbers? Bro uploads a video 11 hours ago, gets 50 million views. Bro, he can't stand up to the streamers, bro. They've got 1,000 viewers right now.
I mean, this shows that many people who criticize this, she just lives in her own head. She didn't even wait for some time just to see how many views it was going to get. She felt dead certain about it.
Insane elderly woman being insane. Well, primetime is also failing miserably by comparison to those numbers. Just to make that point, you can see end wokeness here with the deets about who's getting views. I mean, Fox, CNN, and MSNBC can't break 2 million on primetime. Tucker Carlson's sitting there with 50 mil. So, I don't know who's winning. But there was a, let's say, rightist response, at least some of it, that was critical. Most people obviously love Tucker, so it's not a surprise. But this guy here, so Adam Kinzinger, decided to come out and called him still evil, because he had called him utter evil before as well. Now, this chap, I've seen quite a bit of him. Not American, so not massively clued into American random politicians all the time if I can help it. But this guy just endlessly, whenever I see him saying anything, it's always about glory to Ukraine, which is fine. People allow those opinions. But he's kind of mad in that regard, like someone who's almost irrationally obsessed with it, where it's like, bro, there are other things going on as well. Like, I don't mind that you like Ukraine, that's fine.
It's understandable for those who are principally involved to have high sentimentality, but, just...
Well, for example, he was told that we weren't going to give a blank check to Ukraine, and his immediate response was that the US was giving aid and comfort to the enemy. We're not giving a completely blank check to the Ukrainians, which... No, like, bro, there are arguments about how much to give people instead, but no, just okay. Tucker Carlson has a really good response to him, though, because this guy is also just kind of mad. Like, he responded to popular Twitter account Cat Turd for making fun of Ukraine in a meme. Let's play Tucker's response, because it's probably the best.
Adam Kinzinger fought back. Literal evil, he wrote in a late-night response to Cat Turd. If I met you in person, it would not end well. For you, sicko. Whoa! Hear that, Cat Turd? It will not end well for you. That's not a pillow fight Adam Kinzinger is talking about. That's a full-on slap fight with hair pulling. This is real. You'd better apologize. Our heart goes out to Cat Turd tonight, who's probably cowering in a litter box somewhere, waiting for Adam Kinzinger to show up with sharpened nails. Mock the Ukrainian flag, get scratched. Those are the rules, Cat Turd. It's a tough town. Meow!
I'm sorry, but it's just... Tucker is also incredibly entertaining, personally.
And the face of the other dude was priceless there at the caption.
But the next one here is just the fact that the most focus I saw was on the question, because Tucker argued that the Russians wouldn't blow up a dam, that the effects would then mostly harm them. And there's arguments about this. The thing is, I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. I mean, that as far as I can see, that seems to be the evidence of what's going on here. Because both sides are claiming the other one did it. Both sides have got reasons as to why the other one did it. But nobody's pointed to any evidence. The closest I've seen is pro-Russian accounts tweeting what seems to be explosions going off near it and claiming that they're still under artillery fire and therefore the Ukrainians did it. I mean, I've seen people even pointing out maybe it's just because it's been on the front line for quite a while. There's been no maintenance because do you really want to go down and fix the dam where the other side is pointing their guns? Probably not. Maybe there's just been no maintenance and the thing's collapsed due to structural failures over time. Who knows? Nobody knows. But that's not the point. The point is that, as you could see online, people jumped to their conclusions immediately. For example, Visegrad Group. I quite like them. I really like the Visegrad Group, of course. But I have noticed their account just endlessly, and they said this themselves, are just tweeting endlessly pro-propaganda stuff for Ukraine, which, that's their prerogative.
I don't know of them.
They're a group that decided to just endlessly be like, look what the Russians did, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no one really knows yet what the evidence is. Because, it just happened, for example. But if we go forward, winged horse enthusiast is my personal favorite response to all of this. And the real thing about Tucker's video that I think it exposes, like the previous one, which is that the media just prove his point immediately, every time. Mehdi Hassan over here. I kid you not, but Tucker Carlson's first episode of his new Twitter show, basically him doing a monologue and scrolling through his own teleprompter, said we should be asking more questions about what happened on 9/11 and insisted we have proof that UFOs are real. I kid you not. Poor Alex Jones has some tough new online competition. Watch out. Whoosh. I mean, it just went straight over your head, didn't it? You didn't get it at all. Which is his point was, you don't ask questions. You don't engage to try and find the truth. You're not even trying to have fun, frankly. You people just sit there and work with the machinery to produce what you know are lies or stand by something that is the new narrative without evidence. And it's painful. You never go and look for something that might be controversial, might help the world. Nothing. And he went on MSNBC, and MSNBC decided to be the most self-obsessed response they possibly could. And they say here, well, Mehdi says, the problem is not Tucker Carlson, the problem is Fox, the problem is the Murdochs. For too long, we've focused our ire on Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, or Judge Genie, or whatever it is. The problem is the institution. Amazing. I mean, I'm sorry, but the point of a left-wing propaganda TV news channel, in his view, is not to change the most minds possible. It's not even to, collaborate your own side politically to do something. It's just to dominate the TV sphere. His focus isn't even on Tucker Carlson sitting over there with 50 million views in 11 hours.
They live in their own head.
Tucker's out of the game now. What I'm interested in is battling Fox because we need more TV dominance. It's like, you are so self-obsessed. You're not realizing the world is changing around you, are you? I mean, we're not even going to pretend for a minute that it's a news outlet trying to inform the public or people just looking for the truth at MSNBC. It is a left-wing propaganda outlet. That's fine. It's their money. That's what they want to do. But their worldview as to what their goals are at least through Medi's eyes, is just to dominate TV. They don't even understand their own goals there in terms of trying to change minds or collaborate their own side.
Yeah.
Nothing. Amazing. Now, this brings me to the thing about Tucker's segment and that response that may be a little bit controversial, but if people listen to what I'm saying, I think they'll get what I'm getting at. You may have seen this story pop up in the New York Times. Nazi symbols on Ukraine's front lines highlight thorny issues of history. Now, the thorny issue, I would have thought, might be siding with Nazis in a war is not a good move. And it's not really about optics. Operationally, I don't think it's a good move. In the same way that funding Islamist militias, I don't know who did that in the recent years, might come back to bite you in the ass once or twice, to say the least.
I don't know. I think when it comes to war, as there's a saying that says that when the first casualty of war is truth. I really don't know what the hell is going on there. I've heard all sorts of perspectives about the Azov regiment. I've heard people they're saying it's an issue of numbers. I really don't know that but I think there is a point that you have when you say that you should be really careful with who you pick as an ally.
My problems aren't just, it might look bad. Maybe this might come back to hurt you.
Yeah, maybe, if you find something to be politically expedient in the short term, it may not be so in the long term. I
mean, as a side note, we're about to go into this, but just as a side note, I did see, in fact, the Visegrad groups, again, sorry to pick on them, I do like them,
okay.
But they I don't think they think sometimes in regards to this. There were some Islamist groups who were attacking the Russians in the Caucasus, and they were celebrating this because obviously they're doing everything they can against Russia. The Islamist groups, you may remember the one that's been fighting the Russians for the last 4 years or whatever it was ISIS. I'm not going to celebrate them, ever. So, it's a bad idea, not just optically, but why would you think that would ever turn out to be a positive in the end? But before we go further, just to sell this down, they say in this article, in a statement, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that as a country, they suffered greatly under German occupation. Quote, we emphasize that the Ukrainian state categorically condemns any manifestations of Nazism. And that's because the Ukrainian state position is not racial socialism. It's not the majority position, from what I can see. But, quote, troops' use of patches bearing Nazi emblems risks fueling Russian propaganda and spreading imagery that the West has spent half a century trying to eliminate. That's the New York Times' complaint. Now, Western rightists, for years, have been called Nazis by the center and the left, frankly, in the past.
For all sorts of reasons.
Most
of them are bad.
And it's been comical, of course.
Bad reasons, I mean.
They're not. But one of the interesting positives out of all of that just pain to deal with over the last few decades has been that the Anglo-right, at least, has become incredibly good at actually sniffing out Nazis who try and join their movement, because, as Tommy Robinson will be able to tell you, if the left keeps saying that's a Nazi organization, some Nazis will see that and try and join you. And the American right and the British right have done an incredible good job of actually kicking those people out and understanding where they stand on Nazism, which is obviously bad because this, not because they have flags, for example.
And it's if I may add, that it's a deliberate propaganda by the left, because if they throw a term and they say everything that disagrees with them as being a Nazi movement, people can't coordinate and understand what the hell is going on.
But I'm making the point that it's actually been a weirdly positive thing for the Anglo-right, which has been able to understand ideologically why they kick these people out, whereas the left keep finding themselves with such people inside them for some reason. But they say, so far, the imagery has not eroded international support for the war. The Nazi imagery for Ukrainian soldiers there. It has, however, left diplomats, Western journalists, and advocacy groups in a difficult position, calling attention to the iconography risk playing into Russian propaganda. Saying nothing allows that to spread. That's their problem. This is the problem with the media that Tucker is getting to with his point there. Your problem is an optics problem. That it might end up harming aid for Ukraine in the end at some point. You have no problem with normalizing Nazism. You do not care about such things. You will say that you do endlessly when whining about American rightists, New York Times for Christ's sake, who will label anyone with a MAGA hat as someone who, Zeke Hiles every morning. But all they care about is themselves here. More optics is the endless thing. And they do mention that the problem is real, obviously. That's what this article is about. Several years on after they tried to say it wasn't existing at all. Even then, they might contest it's only in very small numbers. Well, they mentioned, for example, if we go to the next tweet, we can see NATO did tweet this, as we all remember. This was a NATO tweet celebrating women and girls must be free and equal, with a lady with a black sun, a Nazi patch, which was a bit awkward. They deleted it. The Ukrainian government did also tweet the following, which is a tweet here: defense of Ukraine. It's okay to take a break. Can you scroll down a little bit? Do you notice the patch on the chap there with the Ukrainian flag and then another symbol?
Yeah.
It's the Totenkopf. It's the Nazi symbol. Great. That's one or two. The next one here, we have some Russian volunteers who decided to go and join the Ukrainians and invaded Russian territory recently. There was a big hubbub about that. Here's a picture of them. I don't know if you can see that symbol there.
The lion.
Yeah,
the
that's an
blue
SS
lion.
symbol.
Okay.
Just happens again. Okay, we'll go to the next one as well, because some Polish volunteers apparently went with the Russians on this excursion into Russia, and they pixelated their tank for some reason. Sorry, BTR. Do you want to guess why? Should we go to the next image? Just to have it again? Yeah, because for some reason, I don't know if they thought it was I don't know if it was a funny meme. Probably not a funny meme, but they decided to do that. And this happens a lot. And of course, has been a feature and a meme of the conflict. Internationally, people have been making jokes about this. But whenever you bring it up in the media, they didn't want to talk about it, as the New York Times mentions themselves that they feel guilty about. And it's in no short supply, as mentioned. You can find quite a lot of it, even if it's a small number of individual people. Reuters here, doing an interview with another brave serviceman from Spartan Storm, SS, there. His name is Adolf. Typical Ukrainian name. At no point did Reuters decide to bring attention to that, or ask the chap about it, or maybe worry. In fact, they got community noted in the end on Twitter about that. It was just like, maybe Adolf over here isn't your average Ukrainian. Why won't you point that out? It's because of fear, of taboos, because saying this is happening became a taboo, as Tucker was pointing out there. If you go to the next one, we've got the new tank battalion. Just some European media. I think this was Euronews. Do you notice it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The eagle there.
Big eagle with a black sun on it, the SS symbol. Yeah, that happened. If you get the next one, there's some more SS symbols. I mean, this is a guy here who's NAFO. He's very pro-Ukrainian. Man, I support the Ukrainian soldiers, but please, for the goddamn, do not wear SS unit patches on your clothes. Just pleading there. We have some more brave Ukrainian women as well. More black suns. That happened. And then, if you go to the next one, there's a big-ass post that was put up, which is a poster celebrating victory over Nazism. So, Victory Day.
There's the other symbol there.
Yeah, the text is like, we have victory over Nazism. We protected them now, we protect them again. And they've got Azov logos on the thing, which has got Nazi symbols on it. In fact, this got so bad, of course, Azov came out and said, we're going to get rid of the Nazi symbols because we should probably do that. If you go to the next link here, we can see the Times. I mean, this just kind of annoyed me for ages. I mean, a very small number of people will be fair on the, let's say, mainstream media. We saw it in the BBC who were like, oh, no, it means national idea.
Do
like,
you know
okay,
what is the percentage of the Azov battalion? How many let's say we have the army.
How many
Ukraine.
soldiers are wearing Nazi armbands? Or whatever,
how
right?
many belong to the Azov battalion as a percentage of the whole army?
It's a small number. It's a tiny number.
Yeah.
And that's what always got me. I was like, well, why not just have these people removed? And then, the whole conversation would end. You could do that. But, I mean, just to end this off real quick, this aspect, we haven't even mentioned, of course, this is all since the Russian-Ukrainian war became the official title. The previous era of the war in Donbass, yeah, there was a lot more there as well. I mean, no one has probably been able to ignore, there are plenty of pro-Russian accounts endlessly tweeting, for example, these fellow images from it, and there's no shortage of them. We don't have time to show them all. This one here with Azov and their, Hitler Youth swastika there, because, yeah, we get the next one as well. This was at the front lines. Just cool. That is in 2022. They're lying there, that person. But that flag is from the Donbass war, where they just have a swastika at the front. The next one, as well, some chaps with the Ukrainian flag and a swastika out fighting in Donbass. And then the next one, I mean, it goes on quite a bit, is my point. And it always did. And
have the misanthropic division behind. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at the last one here, I've been to Russia, as I'm sure people know. I went to the Victory Museum. I've seen firsthand, if you want, the Russian propaganda arm. And yes, they use the footage of people who are using Nazi stuff to make the point that we're fighting Nazis. And I would have thought it would have been best to remove it then. I mean, especially if it makes up only about 1% of manpower, or less than 1% of the manpower, of the people doing these things, because it's a fringe minority, then you would have thought the correct response would be issue an order that everyone needs to remove these, and I don't want to see them up again, and if they do, you're going to be court-martialed or imprisoned. That would have been the correct response, and it would have helped the Ukrainian cause, because, what, maybe a few hundred people wouldn't comply, and then out of an army of 500,000 men, you lose maybe 100?
I really don't know what to make of this case.
Yeah.
I think at some point I should organize a video talking about the whole war, but that would take a long time.
But if they had done that, what would have happened is you'd have much more international support for Ukraine, which would have helped the Ukrainian cause. They could still do it, and it would help the Ukrainian cause to do it. But instead, there is a taboo about talking about this, even though it's a minority, as I pointed out. But the point being,
I'm sure the counter argument would be that, you know, when you're attacked, you need to use as much manpower you have.
you don't need 100 guys. You can spare it in exchange for a bunch of new weapon systems. Okay. Not to mention, I don't know how many people of ISIS you want fighting for you. Just gonna argue. But my last point here being that the reason I've shown you all that is not just to be like, hoo-hoo, look, swastikas. Instead, it's that the media simply made it a taboo, especially on the escalation of the conflict back when the, let's say, special operation began. And instead, what happened is that you're not allowed to point out that there are Nazi symbols. They would argue endlessly, oh, it's a tiny minority, so just don't even talk about it. Which is why the New York Times have come out 2 years later being like, damn, we really should have talked about this.
Yeah.
Because it's really ended up getting quite thorny of an issue, as they say themselves.
They start with disinformation accusations.
Their web of lies was more important to them than helping the Ukrainian cause of actually dealing with that and then getting more international support. Because that's what the media are, utterly self-obsessed, as Mehdi Hassan exposed himself with his response to Tucker Carlson's video. And as Tucker says, that's how most of us live in the United States, manipulated by lies, silenced by taboos. The specific example, I think, comes under the taboo. My point being about all of this, it's not even necessarily about Ukraine, this segment. It's just the introductory segment that he had in his speech. The point is, the media could not prove Tucker Carlson more correct on every video he produces instantly if they tried. It's comical how well Tucker does, and the reason he does so well is because he's able to expose them at such an excellent level of communication. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Epoch series, this episode on Eleanor of Aquitaine. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.